Hey guys, it's the Lord here, back again with another edition of Flashback Fridays, and what I have for you today is the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman, the animated series, Batman. Now before we get into the meat and taters of this review, since I no longer have the packaging for this figure, let us first take a look-see at his accessories, starting off with the collectible trading card, a quote-unquote trademark of all McFarlane Toys figures, and I'm holding it upside down, real professional overlord. But there you go, there's a picture of Batman from ye old animated series, one of the best animated series of all time, and that's a fact, Jack. That is not an opinion that I share. It's an opinion most of the internet shares, and if you don't share it, well then, you are a unique breed, to say the very least. And you probably have poor taste. But with that being said, flipping it around, there's bio on the back. But if you don't know Batman, first of all, shame on you. And second, if you don't know Batman the Animated Series, even bigger shame on you, because it is the best Batman media, period. I don't care. Shy of the Adam West series from 1966, I don't think you can go wrong with some good old Batman Animated Series action. That said, this figure does also come with a pair of grip hands, rubbery grip hands, squishy squishy, that you can easily swap onto the figure, might I add. Really, really easy. And then he also comes with his trademark grapple gun, which is not entirely accurate to the animated series. I do believe the grapple itself had a different shape to it. It wasn't really like an arrow shape. The DC Collectibles version has a more chill accurate looking one, but this is okay, this is fine. If anything, the bulk of it is accurate. Then he also comes with one of the shittiest batarangs we've ever got from McFarlane, but that said, even a lame McFarlane Toys batarang is better than a good Mattel batarang, because those look like some goddamn pocket combs. Not sure what was going on over there, but I digress. Now, for those of you who have been tuning into the shorts I've been posting on my channel as of late, you know that I picked this guy up off of eBay a couple of weeks ago now. And I gotta tell ya, kind of kicking myself for not buying him when he came out, because this figure's actually pretty awesome. This figure's pretty kick-ass, and I do really like it, despite some of the creative liberties taken. And we're going to get into that right now, because while I do think that this is a solid figure of good old Batman as he appeared in his respected animated series, it's not 100% show accurate. Okay? But before we get started there, he does come with the trademark McFarlane Toys hockey puck display stand that we've gotten a million times now. But looking at this figure, this is kind of a mix of both the New Adventures of Batman and Batman the Animated Series. I would say the head is more New Adventures of Batman, because it's a little bit more simplistic and stylized, whereas the Batman Animated Series had more of a square shape to it. I mean, this is a very square shape in and of itself, but it was a little bit more square shaped than this was. The eyes were a little bigger, and just some minor nitpicky things that keep this from being a tried and true Batman the Animated Series figure. That said, the bat symbol on mine's also a little bit crooked in the slot there, but I don't know, maybe some heat will fix that. That said, that's not that big of a deal for me personally. It's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. That said, the cape is for the most part accurate, I think. It's got the blue on the inside. It's got the black on the outside. That's how it looked. That's fine. It's got the yellow belt, black trunks, black boots, black gloves, and of course the iconic Batman mask there. So, while it may not be 100% perfect as far as a Batman the Animated Series style figure goes, I think some of the anatomy is a little off in places to make it that specific rendition. I think just for an animated Batman figure that looks like an animated Batman figure, it's not too shabby. I think it's okay. For 20 bucks, you could do a lot worse. That said, one thing this thing does have going for it, it's a lot more fun to play with than the DC Collectibles version, because while the DC Collectibles version of the Batman the Animated Series version of Batman is alright, the version they did from the New Adventures of Batman is brittle as hell and will shatter to pieces as you try to move it around. So if you don't want to deal with all that, you just want a really solid animated Batman figure and don't really care about the inaccuracies, this is the one to get. This is still relatively cheap. I got mine for less than 30 bucks shipped to the door. He was 20 bucks originally, so that's not too bad considering inflation and everything nowadays. So as far as articulation goes on this guy, his head will rotate. I did have to heat this up a little bit, and I will say, if anything, the cape could have been trimmed a little bit more to allow this head to really get a lot more play out of it. That said, you do get a little bit, but it's not a ton. You mostly just get rotation, and it's at a bit of a steep and weird angle. But you can look to the side at the very least. It does kind of click into place though, and his big old box chin does get in the way sometimes too. That said, his shoulders do go out to the side, they do go back down, they do rotate forward and back. He does have that butterfly in there, which, side note, I had to pop the arms off mine and kind of pry the butterfly joints out and pop everything back together because it was all stuck in there because of the paint. So be mindful of that, but nothing too serious. Nothing I really needed heat for anyways. Now, he does have a bicep cut that looks okay, it's not great. But this is a very stylized design, so you're going to get weird breaks and stuff in the sculpt, so that's a given. He does have a single joint at the elbow. It does work pretty well on both sides. They are pretty crunchy, but it is kind of, well, not kind of, it is hot as balls in my recording studio right now, so yeah, things are going to be a little bit looser than they usually are. That said, his wrists definitely aren't, but he's got the McFarlane wrist balls up in there. You can rotate them at the top and at the bottom, and if you're wondering how easy it is to swap the hands out, there you go. And if you're wondering how easy it is to swap the hands on, there we go. You can pop that right in, and it stays right in the hole there. That's what she said. Swapping his fist back on, because that's how he's going to be for this review anyways, at least until final thoughts. Popping that in. He does have a diaphragm cut, which looks okay. It's not great, but not much you can do with this type of body design. He does crunch a little bit forward, a little bit back. It at least doesn't have more back than forward, at least not in this case. And he does have a waist swivel, but it's pretty much stuck because of the oval shape. So you're not going to get a whole lot of range out of that. Although you can push it, so I guess there's that. That said, he does have ball hinge hips. Like straight up ball pegs in there. Now be careful, because these have a tendency to pop out sometimes if you go too crazy with it. But much like some of the Robin figures in this line, all these animated figures have these ball hinge hips, or ball joint hips. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but here's what a split looks like with no drop-down hips. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Retro Spider-Man. You can't do this. So, kind of funny. That said, his kick forward isn't all that great. You could probably shave a little bit of this, if I'm being honest, to get him a little bit better kick forward. But it's not great. He does have a little bit of a thigh quiver up there, but nothing to write home about. More so on this side than this side, which is odd. Wonder why that is. Huh, interesting. He does have double jointed knees that do work pretty well. And they actually look pretty clean. Look at that. Hold on. Let's open that back up a minute. Look at how clean this knee is. Holy shit. For an animated style figure, this is not bad. You could do a lot worse than this. It's nice and kind of rounded on the top and at the bottom here. It's not great, but it's decent. It's not terrible. I've seen worse on non-animated looking figures. And then he does have the ball hinge ankles, which on this guy are, they got the D10s. They're tight enough, I think. But they can swivel at the top and at the bottom. And then he's got the okay toe joints. They're not great, but they're not terrible. Not the worst thing ever, but... yeah, articulation's kind of average at best on this, but it is an animated design, so you gotta take some liberties there. That said, I think he's alright. I think if you want an animated Batman and don't want to shell out the cash or don't want to deal with the fragility of the DC Collectibles one, this is a way to go. This is a really solid figure, and I really like it. That said, having him in hand, this figure is a freaking giant, and we're going to take a look at that, because it is now time that we move on. If I can get him to stand. He's a little tricky to stand. It's now time that we move on and take a look at some size comparisons. First up, here's our animated Batman next to a couple other Batmen from the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line. First up, we have the Rebirth Batman. Secondly, we have the Three Jokers Batman, two figures that are regarded as some of, if not the best, Batman figures in the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line as a whole. Personally, I'm still partial to the Rebirth. I just like that one more, and of the three of these, I've had that one the longest, so it's had the most time to grow on me. That said, having all three of these guys lined up, I gotta tell ya, I think I like the animated one more than the Three Jokers one. I don't know what it is. I guess I just don't like that figure as much as everyone else does. It's just not doing it for me. That said, still not a bad figure, but just not my favorite. And last, but certainly not least, to have our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Vendibulus, Living Spawn, who's not towering over everyone today because, as you can plainly see, Batman and Spawn are about neck and neck as far as height goes. That said, it should be worth mentioning that if you do have the New Adventures of Spawn figure, you know, the more anime-looking one, that would pair real nice with this animated Batman because they share a lot of things in common as far as the aesthetic goes. And while I do have that figure, it is unfortunately in storage. Otherwise, I would have busted it out for comparison for you guys because we all know that the Dark Knight and good old Al Simmons here have tangled a time or two, right? But with all that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and if show accuracy isn't exactly what you're looking for, and you just want a fun figure of how the Dark Knight appeared in both the Batman the Animated Series and the New Adventures of Batman, then look no further, because this is 110% your man. And while I must say it's definitely a much more fun figure than the DC Collectibles counterparts, it does have those inaccuracies to the animated series. So if that's something you're looking for, then maybe go with the DC Collectibles figures and all the problems they have, because I know that some of them break, some of them don't. I haven't had any problems with mine personally, knock on wood I don't, but we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe someday I'll get around to reviewing those for Flashback Fridays, but only time will tell. But if there is one thing that I like more than a Batman than Kevin Conroy voiced, it's a figure of the Batman Kevin Conroy voice, because on top of the fact that I am a huge toy fan, I am also a huge animation fan as well. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's edition of Flashback Fridays. If you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially when we don't have a Mark Hamill Joker to go with this Batman. I mean, what the frick, Todd? And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.